Morning, it's Vikki here from Wellness Thing, and we're here today to talk about everything to do with mental health related within the community. Today, this month, I want to welcome Kevin McPhee. Kevin, I've known for a few years now, and I've quietly stalked him on LinkedIn, if that's okay to say. But this month, I'm delighted to welcome Kevin. Kevin is the founder of Wellbeing Solutions. I'm excited to say that his dedication and career to supporting and helping individuals within some of the largest companies and projects globally. So Kevin here is here to share some history with us. And his work within the wellness space. So, what sets Kevin apart is his unique approach in tackling mental health issues. Kevin has ignited a innovative technology, and we've got him here to talk more about it. So, welcome along, Kevin, and thank you for joining us today. Maybe you can introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are and what's your role.
Yeah, sure. Certainly. Thanks very much for having me, Vicky. It's been a long time coming. I think we've talked about this for a few months, so it's great to be here. A little bit about me. I've just celebrated my 49th birthday, which is, at the same time is also brought 19 years of me living in New Zealand. If you haven't realized already, I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland. Married to Lisa. I've got two kids, Neve and Joshua. Bit of a taxi dad nowadays. Taking them to the swimming, the football, netball, dancing, Kit McGrath, kids' birthdays. But like all dads, it's what you do. You just love it. So no issues there with that. By way of being a director and founder of Wellbeing Solutions, it's my second SaaS solution that I've brought to market in the last 10 years. My first was a multi-award winning solution around health and safety that's now across Australasia. And it was a runner-up in our very own prestige Westpac Awards. But Wellbeing Solutions was established in January 2023, and it's on a mission to curb the horrific mental health and suicide statistics across Australasia.
Oh, that's really interesting. I'm excited to know more on what that actually means. This is a wellness conversation, and I know you and I have talked offline about youth and how we can go about making a big difference. Kevin, I know you get involved in a lot of the sports communities, particularly with the kids. Can you maybe just share a little bit about your experience and an impact on what sports had in your life and what's driven you to motivate you to work with the youth now?
Yeah, so been involved in sport and coaching probably all my life, really, in some capacity. Been a Manchester United supporter, and I've followed them across Europe. I've even been to the World Cup in Brazil, and yeah, some amazing campaigns in the world of football. And I think that you don't really realize it when you're growing up, but especially I think it's really important to understand where I came from in Belfast, where I came from De La Salle School, which was on the Falls Road, and how this sort of impacts on my life is was back. You don't even realize it, as I say, when you're quite young. So to give an example, obviously everyone knows about the troubles back in those days, and it was on our doorstep. If you're from the Falls Road, there was the two main hotspots in Northern Ireland, which was the Falls and the Shankill Road, and that was Catholic versus Protestant, so to speak. And as being a young Catholic man, I played for the f football team, and we would be you'd be getting. I think I remember very vividly the PE teacher actually standing in the middle of the changing room explaining to us like you're going to go to a location next Wednesday, and they start to prepare you for things that I remember feeling strange about that had never been kind of in those type of environments. But they were talking about things where it's going to be hostile and where people are going to say things to you that you may not like or hear, but it's important that you're kind of representing the school and things. And so I remember that feeling of strangeness, but I can't prepare you for what was about to happen, which was we turned up in a bus and it was against a Protestant school called Boys Model. And I always remember the parents all around the field, and I was number eight. And they would, when you went to win the ball and maybe you're a bit late in the tackle, your name would be, number eight. We'll see you after the game. Bit more colorful language than that.
Yeah.
And it was then when you were running up the sideline taking a throw in, they'd be spitting on you. And it's purely because you're a Catholic. And so the teachers are saying these things to kind of prepare you for that. And you don't really, I think, as I say to you, you don't really realize it. But what comes out of that is that the team sort of, you realize you're in this sort of a, I'm going to say this sounds a bit strong, but you're in this battle, and there's all you've got is the 11 guys on the field with you, and you're coaching the lane, and then the next thing is that you're walking off and you see your coach assaulted, and you're on the bus, and it's an awful, awful experience. And I think what I'm getting at there with that is that the teachers were trying to prepare us to create an element of resilience. And
Yes.
first time going out into, I mean, you know that you saw the helicopters around the town and you heard the explosions and the odd shooting, but your mum and dad protected you away from that. You know, you were quite young, but when you're in the school and you start to go into those environments with the school, you don't have that protection. You literally, especially in those days, you're relying on the coach. And it's not enough against maybe 40 parents who kind of have came to the game for different reasons other than supporting the team. So that was that. So the reason I'd say that is because if you fast forward to today, I identified that what I feel is really missing is that the solutions that you talk about in the market, and there's some fantastic solutions out there that do some wonderful things. But it's important that what they're focusing on is the today and the now and the people in the workplace. What I've really believed is that one, we have a solution that sort of does something similar, but what about the next generation coming through? Are we just going to wait until they have the problem and deal with it again, or do we start to give these kids an insight into life, the
Yeah.
challenge, be much more open about that, and give them a resilience? And there's examples of how we do that, like because you've got to. It's quite a bit of a skill that I've learned myself even over the last year, that you have to kind of. To give you an example, the different age groups of kids require different things, and you have to see different kids in different lights as well. So it's a bit of a juggling act when you go to every environment, which is very different. And what I mean is that we kind of embracing the fact of one of the first things we talk about is it's okay to make a mistake. I mean, how many times do we pick up and read a paper or in social media, some kid's done something silly, and then they're kind of it's blown up over social media, and the kids then contemplating suicide or worse. The suicide has occurred. And so I think the thing is that what we want to do is through using football as a vessel is encourage the types of resilience that they need. That basically over the challenge and tight line that we have with the kids because of the curriculum that they've got to follow to be exposed to other sports. We've got a short window, so we need to be short, specific, get them to buy into the fact of making a mistake is okay. The fact that it's the importance of bouncing back. And it's the fact also the importance of the team coming together. That if a player scores an own goal, the team come over and say, "Hey, you know what? I know you can do better. And come on, just it's behind us now. Let's go again." You know, it's those things because if you take that type of if you take a challenge for an adult or a young person, that's exactly what they need when they're older. And so if we instill that in them now, what you then have later is they've got the tools to deal with it better. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say it's perfect, but you're kind of going that way because I certainly have had some challenges in my life, and I have found that the resilience that has been put into me from the environment and background that I came from is a proven testimony that it works. And
Yeah.
that's now when we go into the schools can see it and they're adapting it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Kevin. I think it's really important how our background molds us and turns us into adults and the career that we follow. So I can see that the passion that you have behind it and what an awesome way to get in and start talking to these people within the schooling systems. So Kevin, with that said, can you let us know a little bit about the Wellbeing Solutions has created a platform that makes it easier for you to check in with players simply by scanning your QR code. Can you maybe talk us a little bit more about that and what that means?
Yeah, I think before it comes to the QR code, it's really important that there's key components that you need to have right with these kids and anyone. Like if you don't just trust anyone the first time you meet them, you're kind of building that up over time. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we create an environment of trust with them. And our challenge is that we've got a short window to do this. So and the schools are really good in the sense they're now letting us come back in on our free time at lunchtime and support outside the actual school curriculum or physical education classes. So we're getting more and more time with them, which is really important because we establish that trust with them, and it's then the engagement. So when we those examples I gave about talking about when they fail, we then the following week or the weeks after we look for examples from them, and then we ask them to tell us. So what we're trying to do is instill it in them in the short period of time that we've got. So when
Hmm.
you trust with them, then at the end you're able to kind of bring in a solution of a QR code where they trust you to kind of then get the honest feedback. And so what they basically do is every kid's got a phone now, and not from the younger generation, no, but the other older generation in the colleges, they all have a phone. And at the end of the day, it's generally at the end of the class, they're able to scan the QR code. And it's a very simple way where we explain to them, scan the QR code, and you don't have to answer the questions. You don't have to do that. But if you do, you can do it when you scan the QR code, or you can take it home, and the form will be on your phone and you can kind of update it then. And those questions are designed just to see how they're feeling. It's sort of based off the Who Five principle, which is looking at their well-being for the last 2 weeks. How are they feeling? And it's giving us an indication, and it and also gives them an opportunity to talk to tell us something that's going on in their lives that may be something that's kind of a problem for them. And then we're able to kind of that information comes through to our psychologist, and she basically will reply back to them and give them the guidance on what they can do going forward. And it's all that's free, that service, and confidential. So it's basically allows the kids to kind of just be just the one, that trust component is there, and then the second is that they're able to talk to us, and then three, we're able to give them that service back to just give them a wee bit of an answer to whatever their problem is.
Awesome. So if I were a child, and I was feeling a touch depressed or even suicidal, I could scan the QR code, fill in the appropriate information. It is then collected from your end, picked up, and then action is appropriately taken so we don't miss that opportunity to reach out to that person.
I think it's important to point out that I'm not a psychologist by no means. What I am is probably kind of very forward thinking on the approach of how we can combine the great work that psychologists do with technology, because it's really important at the same time that we stay disciplined and never lose that human engagement for what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Articles now on this, and people have asked me, "Do you think about technology?" And I'm just reading this morning. There's technology now in the market where it's a chatbot helping with psychology. I mean, look, the thing is that like technology is fantastic, but you can never come away from the human impact and of sitting and having a conversation with someone face to face, or hearing that voice, not a chatbot. We've got to kind of be quite disciplined about that. It's
Yeah.
personal people we're dealing with, not robots.
Sure. So we're talking about youth at the moment, but this system that you've created also works for adults as well, right? So it's not purely designed to pick up what's going on with kids.
No, it's for adults, um, and basically what how that works with adults is it's about with parents. The first thing as well is about trust. So in the parents, how the system works is generally in the working environment, and how that the first thing is that if you look at organizations, they have a responsibility now. Let's start with that, because what really should happen is that I've explained this a few times now, that the way you should sort of look at mental health and well-being in the organization, or my opinion of it, is like when you're with your car, if you get a new car, you want to get it serviced. So if you've got employees, you want to just check in on them. Everyone's talking about that. So when you bring a car to the mechanic, he's going to give you a list of what the issues are. And then you can start kind of going, well, if there's a bit of an oil leak versus the door's not working, what are you going to prioritize? The oil leak, of course, because
Yeah.
it's going to think. So that's what our approach to it was, is that, well, we need to create the risk assessment for a business to kind of engage with its people. And I've got it set up here to show you, because it's really important, I think, that people see how we do this, because the next part that you need is engagement. And so there is a real stigma out there with apps that people have got, where if you have there's a real persona around having an application on your phone from the workplace that they're watching you and monitoring you. there's issues around if you're in company and a little message pops up, people are saying, "Oh, that's that app Wellbeing Solutions or whatever the apps are out there," and they think then that there's something wrong with you, that you're kind of getting some support, and you feel that right away as soon as that little message pops up. There's also the security elements of it, in the sense where we're now hearing about cases come to the UK. It's been happening now for the last few years, where people's vulnerabilities when they're putting it into the app, that it's actually taking that information and marketing it to them. So there's
Oh,
something to be very conscious of. And so what we wanted to do is when I created Wellbeing Solutions, I literally created this matrix of what works really well and what doesn't. And if we even look at having apps on your phone, you need to have money on your phone. But you
yeah.
look at climate and look at the young people and the older generation, they're struggling. And so they may not have money on their phone. So then the purpose of the app becomes dysfunctional. It's not going to support what the purpose of the app is for. So we factored that all in. What we wanted to do was to build a solution that you could just use by text or a link. And that's kind of what I'm just, so the first thing is that a business should be doing is a risk assessment on their people. And that, by the way, is the ISO 45003 for us. Can I share my screen and show it to you?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I've got it set up for this. So you've got to give me access, I think.
Yeah.
It's
Allow.
super duper. Let me just jump into this. Okay.
Great.
You see that screen okay?
Yep.
All right. So what we're looking at here is the ISO 45003. And that the ISO 45003 is a global standard and focuses on managing psychosocial risks, which are factors that can affect an employee's psychosocial response on their
Mm.
and their workplace conditions. So what we do very differently, first of all, is we don't give it out as the app. We have the ability for this to be shared as a QR code or a link that can be text to an employee. And so they basically scan it. And then the next part is really important. So they can put in their key information. There's a bit of a lag in my internet here. Sorry, just a second. There we go. And then they can put in optional their email and mobile number, but we do need one. So I'm just going to put in a quick number. And then what we do is that engagement component to us is extremely important. So we give multilingual capability for what they're about to see. So these are some examples that are pretty popular in New Zealand, but we can use pretty much any language. And so what that means is the assessment's going to pop up in that language that we choose, but we'll use English for today.
Yep.
And then we have the privacy message, and then we move into the assessment itself. And I've just set this up this morning just to show you a little bit. So one of the challenges that we're starting to see out there, especially in the men industry in Australia and some of the areas where people previously have left school early and haven't had a proper education, they're challenged with reading. So what we've actually got is the ability for to read the questions to them.
Oh, nice.
Your gender
Nice.
identity. And so what that does is that it actually everything about us is about making that engagement really and really simple. And then basically we're even looking at technology now where when they can reply back and the system identifies the words and it kind of selects the answer. But as an example, there's a series of questions here that we would ask before the ISO starts, and you're going to see why in a little second. I'm just going to show you. But here's the purpose. Here's the actual ISO starting here, and it's broken into the different categories of roles and responsibilities, culture, leadership, all those different categories that make up the ISO. And what happens then is that you've seen now that the engagement of the to access the form is pretty straightforward, really simple, easy. The engagement is pretty high that we're striking around about 97%, because of the multilingual capability as well. And then what you then have is the reporting. So we use Power BI reporting, and it basically allows us to kind of break up the categories that the guys have answered the questions in. And so the business can start to see how they're performing. They can see how many's filled the form in, what's the average score. And we can see we've got a problem here with workplace violence and safety. So they can drill down into that pretty quickly and go straight into, well, what's the reasons for it? And also what they can see is where it's happening. So they can see it it's in the male or the female area, the age range, the demographic, and that allows the business then to start that strategy component of like,
Mm.
well, look, this is our priority. We need to fix. Looking at the main report, you can see what the priority is, and then you can start to kind of strategize around what the next step is with that, with the help of one of our psychologists. So we have psychologists step in and will guide the business on the next best steps to go forward from that. So ultimately,
Fantastic.
what the business has got is in their business very quickly, they can see what the problems are across their organization, but they can also see what they're doing very well. And they can use that to kind of to kind of explain to the people, their employees, what they're doing well, and get their buy-in to like, hey, we're doing this, but no, we're not so good at this, and we're going to focus on this area, and this is what we're going to do about it. So there's a real, let's take them on that role, because one of the key components is communication to what we're trying to achieve here. The business needs to be communicating to them what they're doing well, and also being honest and upfront about what they're not doing well, and then they can reflect on it. And then the good thing about this is they can do it again in 12 months and see
Mm.
it again and see the improvement. And that's the first part of what we do to bring it together for the employees.
That's fantastic, Kevin. You've got some really instant, tangible numbers that people can work with instead of a guessing game that uh, has been going on for a number of years now, the amount of organizations that don't know where to start. So now you've got some real tangible starting points, being able to um, highlight the areas where the organization needs to really knuckle down it. I
But
love
just
it.
like
I
it
love
does,
it.
even the business owners who, because we're working with quite a few across Australasia now, and they're what it gives them is the strategy in which they need to take the next step. So they can prioritize. In this case, you'd be prioritizing the workplace balance and safety, and
Mhm.
then basically then you need to kind of where you're prioritizing your investment as well. So you can make an immediate impact is the idea behind that. But you can also identify through your leadership teams where there's training required. And what we also do is we have relationships with some of the training providers it's a one-stop shop where you can see now what they can simply go into and look at leadership and management. There it is, and book them into training right away. So the concept here with one of the key things about wellbeing solutions is once we know about a problem, we want to act very fast to fix it. And I'm going to show you another example of that very shortly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. You've got me intrigued. I think the important thing about our call today is that many people don't realize that there's tools out there and that can help. And I guess this is just a, a perfect opportunity for us to just bring this awareness. You're going to show me something else, Kevin?
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the key things is about these solutions that I see in the market, and I've done quite a bit of marketing on this to kind of educate people is that because there's a real emphasis with the law changes that are coming, the guidelines being updated in the Health and Safety at Work Act to include psychosocial risks. Everyone knows it's coming, and so there can create a little element of well, what can we do quickly? And they get it to market, and they just see the first thing they get, and they purchase it. And I think that's their heart's in the right place, but this is where you kind of gotta. It's like you've got to just take a step back and think, well, is this the right thing? And one of the key things I really want to get across to people today is that is when you engage with an IT solution, it's really important that you know that all the issues that you've heard in the news about cyber attacks, about Capital, that Wellington Hospital having the issues. It just came out last week that they had that attack a few years ago, and it was from a link in a computer that was sent through that someone clicked on and they got access to thousands of people's information. That is very real. And
Yeah,
these people are looking for any opportunity that they can to kind of capitalize on people's, these organizations
vulnerability.
not
Yeah.
protect, yeah, that are not protecting the clients. And what I mean about that is that the question you need to be asking is, one, have you ever had a data breach? Two, what protection are you giving my employees and our information? And what they need to be saying to you is they have the ISO 27001 certification. If they don't have that, they're falling short. It's as simple as that. That is an internationally standard recognized requirement that government is asking every organization for now, and it's becoming normal practice. So whether it be a risk assessment or an app that's on your phone that's just giving out data, it's holding information of your people, and you run the risk here of them getting breached, your information
Mm.
on your people, and just think about how would that make you feel as an organization? Would that make people want to come and work for you? How would your people feel? They would lack your trust, and you'd be doing a lot more psychosocial risk work if that happened.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so I think it's really important people understand that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And these phones at the moment, you talk about one thing and then all of a sudden an advertisement pops up, right? So it's very, really, really important. We're just running out of time, so I'm just going to close up. Kevin, I have really enjoyed seeing what this amazing software can do. I just wanted to say it's been so inspiring hearing about your journey and your insights. I loved hearing about you growing up in Ireland. We've a lot of us have heard number of stories, but it's really important to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Not that I'm calling you a horse.
No,
Sure, you've been called worse, Kevin. Just in closing up, have you got any final words of encouragement for anyone struggling or where to go at the moment if they're looking for a place to go to get support? Just some final moments. How do people get in touch with you? How do they find out more about the product?
yeah, I think we're on, obviously we got our website, wellbeingsolutions.co. We are on LinkedIn. You can contact me directly. The business has a LinkedIn page, and on Facebook as well. So we're on the main media social networks. And on there you can, on some of those platforms has got my mobile number direct as well. So you're welcome to reach out to me. But I think the key message that what we want to kind of get across is, and there's a real theme for a lot of the organizations dealing with well-being, is that you're never alone. Never think for a second you're alone. What we're trying to do with these kids is to trust the people around them as well, which is a key component.
Yeah,
So go to someone that you trust, that you can talk to, and if you can't, it is about reaching out to the helplines and the free text supports that are out there to kind of support
yeah.
you. Just what your challenge is, but you just cannot feel that you're on your own, and everybody has a responsibility just to check on everybody.
Yep,
Just check on.
absolutely. I totally agree with you. We all have a responsibility just to check on everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Kevin. And to all of our listeners, remember there's 1 in 5 of us at some point of our lives struggle with a mental health challenge. This doesn't define you. With the right tools, the right support, you can get through this. So thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing these great news out there in the wellness space. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers now.
Cheers. Uh, stop recording.